If you made it through day one, you did something most people who try to quit never do. You held through the pharmacokinetic crash, the phase where nicotine dropped from your blood, and your heart, your blood pressure, and your peripheral circulation all began their measured return to baseline. But day two is different. Day one was about nicotine leaving. Day two is about your brain realizing it's gone and reacting. Here is what most people don't understand about why day two feels harder in some ways than day one. On day one, your body was still processing nicotine. The craving signal, while intense, came in waves, short, sharp, 3 to 5 minutes each. By day two, the nicotine is gone. And the infrastructure your brain built to handle it, the upregulated nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, estimated at 50 to 100% above non-smoker density, is now fully exposed. No agonist arriving. Maximum receptor starvation. This video covers hours 25 through 48. Everything that happens inside you this day, hour by hour. Why you feel what you feel and what it means physiologically. The symptoms you have today are not signs that you're failing. They are the measurable, documented, predictable output of receptor biology. And every hour that passes, the system is beginning to adapt. Hour 25. You've been awake or you've just woken up. And the first conscious thought for many people is the absence of something. That absence has a precise neurochemical description. Chronically, your brain responded to nicotine's overstimulation of nicotinic acetylcholine receptors by building more of them. Researchers estimate this upregulation produces 50 to 100% more receptor sites than a non-smoker has. Now, at hour 25, those receptors are at maximum agonist starvation. They were built for a stimulus that is no longer arriving. The cravings you feel in this window are not uniform. You'll notice a persistent background discomfort between acute craving peaks. This is new compared to day one, where baseline discomfort was milder between waves. The sustained undercurrent is the aggregate signal of millions of unoccupied receptors. At hour 26, your cardiac output is adjusting. Nicotine had kept your sympathetic nervous system chronically activated. Adrenal epinephrine, elevated heart rate, peripheral vasoconstriction. Cardiac output is now stabilizing as afterload decreases from reduced peripheral vascular resistance. Your heart is doing less work. The numbers are better even when you feel worse. By hour 27, your liver is still metabolizing nicotinic, the main metabolite of nicotine, through CYP2A6 enzymes. Nicotinic has a 16-hour half-life, which means significant levels remain in blood and urine for days after your last use. This is why urine tests detect nicotine use so long after cessation. The active compound is long gone, but its shadow lingers in your biochemistry. Hour 28 brings something happening in your lungs. Alveolar macrophages, your lungs' resident immune cells, had their phagocytic capacity suppressed 30 to 50% by chronic smoke or aerosol exposure. They are beginning to recover functional competence. Your pulmonary immune defense is incrementally waking up. At hour 29, your whole blood viscosity is decreasing. Elevated hematocrit and fibrinogen levels in smokers increase how thick the blood is, which stresses arterial walls. As nicotine clears and inflammation decreases, your blood is becoming measurably less viscous. This reduces shear stress on every artery in your body. Hour 30, something that surprises many people in this window. You may be coughing more than you were. Goblet cells in your bronchial epithelium are increasing mucus production as ciliary function begins to return. The mucociliary escalator, the system that moves debris out of your lungs, is starting to come back online. More mucus, more coughing. It is a sign of healing, not illness. Your lungs are beginning to clean themselves. Hour 31. Something is happening in your brain's reward system that is distinct from withdrawal symptoms. It is the beginning of adaptation. Dopamine D2 receptors in the striatum, which chronic nicotine had downregulated through repeated dopamine surges, are beginning to upregulate. Your brain is building more sensitivity to dopamine, not less. This resensitization will eventually restore normal reward processing, but right now, you're in the valley between the old system and the new one. Anhedonia, and the clinical term for the inability to experience normal pleasure, is at its deepest in this window. Food tastes flat, Music sounds flat. You're not broken, you're between operating systems. At hour 32, your plasma F2 isoprostanes, a precise biomarker of lipid peroxidation and oxidative stress, are beginning to decline. Free radical burden is dropping. Your cell's own antioxidant systems are recovering capacity they lost under chronic smoke or aerosol exposure. Hour 33 brings something you may actually feel: tingling or heightened sensitivity in your fingertips. Small fiber peripheral nerves, chronically vasoconstricted and hypoxic, are experiencing improved perfusion. This is real sensory recovery. The nerves are waking up. At hour 34, your salivary pH is normalizing. Cigarette smoke and vaping aerosols had pushed it more acidic. As pH returns to neutral, the oral microbiome environment improves. Bacteria that thrive in acidic conditions, including karyogenic strains, lose their competitive advantage. Hour 35. Your circulating vitamin C, depleted 25 to 40% in chronic smokers due to oxidative consumption, is beginning to recover. Improved ascorbic acid availability means better collagen synthesis, better immune function, better skin repair. Hour 36 is a clinical marker worth knowing. The mucociliary escalator is now functionally active. Cilia lining your bronchial tubes are beating with increasing coordination. Their job is to move trapped particulates, tar deposits, aerosol residues, inflammatory debris upward from your lower airways toward your throat, where you can expectorate them. You may be coughing and producing more phlegm than usual. This is the system working. This is your lungs, after years of paralysis, beginning to clean themselves from the inside out. Hour 37. Inside every cell in your body, mitochondria are recovering efficiency. Cigarette smoke contains hydrogen cyanide, which inhibits cytochrome C oxidase, a critical enzyme in the electron transport chain, the final stage of cellular energy production. With cyanide exposure ended, mitochondrial respiration is recovering. Your cells are generating ATP more efficiently than they were 48 hours ago. You may not feel more energetic yet. Central dopaminergic hypofunction is masking that. But at the cellular level, your energy machinery is running cleaner. Hour 38 brings cardiovascular news worth noting. Your coronary artery endothelium-dependent vasodilation is improving. Nicotine had caused coronary vasospasm and inhibited endothelial nitric oxide synthase, the enzyme that produces the signaling molecule that tells blood vessels to relax. With nicotine gone, nitric oxide production is recovering. Your coronary arteries are dilating more appropriately. Myocardial perfusion during exertion is measurably better than it was 2 days ago. At hour 39, your HDL cholesterol, the so-called good cholesterol, is beginning its recovery. Chronic smoking suppressed HDL by 5 to 10%. Simultaneously, LDL particle oxidation rates are declining as systemic oxidative stress decreases. Your lipid profile is improving across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Hour 40. Your kidneys have now filtered and excreted the vast majority of nicotine and its primary metabolites. Urine cotinine levels are still detectable, but declining steadily. A brief psychological trap appears here for some people. A false confidence, sometimes called the "I've got this" phenomenon. Research identifies this as a relapse precursor if not recognized. Naming it helps. The feeling that it's over is not evidence that it's over. Hour 41 brings metabolic reality. Your basal metabolic rate has decreased approximately 5 to 10% as nicotine's thermogenic stimulation resolves. Nicotine had been activating brown adipose tissue thermogenesis, burning extra calories. That effect is gone. Appetite is increasing. This is why people report weight gain after cessation. It is real and it is metabolic, not psychological weakness. At hour 42, your T lymphocytes, CD4 and CD8 cells, the adaptive immune system's primary operators, are recovering functional responsiveness. Chronic nicotine exposure had suppressed their proliferative capacity and cytokine production. Your adaptive immune system is incrementally strengthening. You are becoming less susceptible to infections you would have caught more easily during active use. Hour 43. Your cerebral blood flow is normalizing. Nicotine constricts cerebrovascular smooth muscle, reducing blood flow to the brain, particularly to the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for executive function, impulse control, and decision-making. As that constriction resolves, cerebral perfusion is improving. You may notice brief moments of unexpected mental clarity, thoughts connecting more easily, a moment of sharper focus, before the cognitive fog reasserts itself. These are not accidents. They are evidence of real measurable neurological improvement. At hour 44, your wound healing capacity is improving. Fibroblast proliferation, the cell division process that closes wounds and rebuilds tissue, had been suppressed by nicotine's vasoconstrictive effects on dermal microcirculation. With blood returning to the skin's deeper layers, healing is accelerating. Surgical studies document measurable improvement within 48 hours of cessation. Hour 45, your stomach lining is healing. Nicotine stimulated excess gastric acid secretion through direct action on enteric nicotinic receptors. With nicotine gone, basal acid output is decreasing. If you've had gastroesophageal reflux or stomach discomfort, the underlying physiological driver of that is resolving. Hour 46. The autonomic nervous system is approaching a new equilibrium. Plasma epinephrine and norepinephrine levels, the catecholamines that nicotine kept chronically elevated, are trending toward non-smoker ranges. This produces a strange, oscillating subjective experience, intervals of unusual calm alternating with spikes of agitation as the system oscillates toward a set point it hasn't occupied in months or years. The oscillation is not a sign of failure. It is the signature of a system finding its level. If you survived the first night, fragmented sleep, vivid dreams, waking more than usual, here is what is different about the second night. The REM rebound phenomenon is active. Your brain has been chronically REM suppressed by nicotine's action on cholinergic mechanisms in the brainstem's pontine tegmentum. The first night was disrupted and largely non-restorative. The second night, REM rebound intensifies. The brain is pushing hard to recover the sleep architecture it's been denied. You may dream about vaping or smoking. This is a documented clinical feature of nicotine withdrawal, not a sign of psychological fixation. The brain is processing withdrawal content through sleep. Write the dream down when you wake. Externalizing it reduces its emotional charge. Your sleep will still be fragmented. That is expected. What matters tonight is not sleep quality. Sleep quality normalizes over days 3 through 5. What matters tonight is that you do not interpret poor sleep as evidence that you should give up. Poor sleep during acute withdrawal is not your new normal. It is a known, predictable, time-limited consequence of the cholinergic rebalancing happening in your brainstem. One concrete piece of physiology for tonight. Your body is releasing growth hormone during slow-wave sleep. Growth hormone drives tissue repair. And even though the slow-wave sleep is disrupted, what you do get is productive. Epithelial cells in your airways are dividing and replacing damaged predecessors at approximately 500,000 cells per hour during sleep. Your lungs are healing while you rest, even imperfectly. 48 hours. This milestone is clinically meaningful for 3 reasons. First, nerve endings. Peripheral nerve endings damaged by chronic smoke or aerosol exposure are regenerating. Olfactory receptor neurons are recovering sensitivity. Gustatory papillae, the taste receptor cells on your tongue, are replacing smoke-flattened predecessors. Patients consistently report the first noticeable improvement in smell and taste at this specific point. If food tastes slightly more vivid right now, or if you noticed a smell you hadn't been detecting, this is the mechanism. Second, the peak of what is clinically documented as cessation anger. Hour 48 is associated with a well-documented phenomenon: disproportionate rage responses to minor stimuli. A small inconvenience triggers a reaction that feels like fury. This is not a character flaw. It is a documented neurological state. The dopaminergic system is at maximum deficit. The prefrontal inhibitory control is at its lowest point relative to limbic reactivity. If you feel rage right now that doesn't match the provocation, you are experiencing cessation anger, and it has a name precisely